Lead, a production of the Women of Color Empowerment Institute. We are your hosts. I'm Kathy Eggleston.
I'm Michelle Austin Pammies. Today, we are about to treat you to an extraordinary show because we'll be introducing you to an extraordinary man. Tell us about him, Kathy. His name is Eternal Polk, by the way. Tell us about Eternal Polk.
Well, Mr. Eternal Polk is a 3-time Emmy-nominated director and writer with over 20 years of working on short and long-form projects, including documentaries, music videos, branded content, and commercials. Intimate, nuanced, and intentional while placing subjects on a pedestal to display their humanity is how Eternal describes his work. Currently, Eternal serves as creative director and writer and director, participating in ideation, script writing, directing, client commercial shoots, and story development. In just over 5 years, his work has won over 30 awards, and his debut feature film, Gaining Ground: The Fight for Black Land, has been accepted into 17 film festivals, winning 10 awards and honorable mentions.
Well, we'll be introducing you to Eternal Polk right after these messages.
And I color out loud, repping my town. Ayo, ayo, ayo. If you wanna feel amazing right now, flash up your lights and color the whole town. La-di-day-yo. Ayo, ayo, ayo. Yo, I color out loud, repping my town. La-di-do, la-di-day-yo. La-di-day-yo, la-di-day, la-di-da-di-day-yo. La-di-day-yo. Everyone under celebrate, make a toast.
The law office of Austin Pammies Norris Weeks Powell is a full-service law firm practicing in the area of governmental law, including the representation of municipalities, civil litigation, personal injury, real estate, and corporate transactional matters. With over 100 years of collective experience, our attorneys are admitted to practice before state courts, federal courts, and the United States Supreme Court. We are conveniently located in downtown Fort Lauderdale and can be reached at 954-768-9770. Or for more information about the law firm of Austin Pammies Norris Weeks Powell, visit our website at apnwlaw.com. That's apnwlaw.com.
Welcome back to Women Lead.
Well, we are back and we are about to introduce you to the man, Mr. Eternal Polk. And you're not going to forget him because clearly with a name like that,
yes,
he'll go on forever. But
good and bad thing, yes.
For sure. But so we are very interested in, of course, the movie, right? That's what we want to talk about, Gaining Ground, the fight for Black land. That's what we want to talk about, but we don't want to just jump right into it. We want to know about you. So tell us, what brought you to this artistic form that you're now expressing? Because it seems like you're doing a lot. Tell us a little bit. It's not just producing. You're producing movies now. You're producing commercials. What brought you to this art?
Filmmaking?
Yes.
It's a very interesting story because I started off studying mechanical engineering at Purdue University. Yeah, and so really thought that that's what I was going to do. I am the only one in my family who wasn't like sort of artistic, was my mother can draw, my sister draws, crafts, design. My father's in photography, even though he's an amazing mechanical person, like he can do anything. And but I was straight like numbers and math and science and all that. I was trying to build lasers at 9 years old, stuff like that. And when I was in Purdue, we realized we weren't a good fit, and which is code for I partied too much. I did not go to class, and I wound up flunking out. But when I went back to school, I started acting. And it was really pretty much how I do everything is I think I can do that. And so I tried out for a play and I got the lead. Never acted before, and that sort of started the journey. And when I was in rehearsal with my director, I kept giving suggestions on how the scene should go and what the actors should do. And my mentor, her name is Sandra Gay, she said, Mr. Polk, when you get your own production, you can have anybody do whatever you want them to do. But today, you will shut up and do what I told you to do. And she was kind of intimidating, and so that's what I did. But when I was deciding and Purdue was deciding whether I could come back at the end of the semester, I thought about what would I do besides engineering. And I landed on being a director. I realized that I had been coming up with stories and stuff like when I was younger, and I was always a TV kid, you know, Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock and Star Wars and all that other stuff. And I was really, really interested in it. But I never realized that you can actually have a career in it. Mm-hmm. And when I figured out you could have a career in it, that's when I'm like, oh, I think this is what I want to do. I would say that there was a woman who was a counselor at Purdue. Her name is Jolinda Priest. She said, I don't think this is what you want to do. And she gave me a book, and it was all in communications. And she said, go through this book and circle what is interesting to you. Everything was in music and film and video and TV. And I wasn't really aware what she was doing. I said, okay, I'm just circling this, and hand it back to her. And she looked at it and she said, this is what you want to do. And so those things were kind of all swirling together, you know, the directing, and then the mentor, and then the counselor. And that's how I came to start directing. And my mentor, I called her up and I told her. She said, good. Gave me a camera and gave me a book of scripts that were written and directed by Black filmmakers in the 70s. Said, go do it. And so that's how I started.
So I want to key in on what you said in terms of understanding that you could make a career out of this thing that you thought that you could be good at. When did that happen, and how did that happen? Were you still in school? Was it an early experience out of school?
No, you know what it was? Spike Lee. Seeing Spike Lee direct was just like, oh, it never occurred to me that you could direct. I was very passive in the sense that I consume like a lot of people. We consume things. And like I know some people love cars. Some people don't think that they can design the cars that they love. And especially back then, a lot of it was, were you exposed to this? Did you understand what this was aside from your consumption of it? So it was seeing Spike Lee and knowing he was a director. I'm like, oh, I went to NYU. I went to the same school he went to, moved to New York, and I did meet him in Indianapolis, where I'm originally from. And I met him in New York when I went to New York as well. So it was clearly seeing him and doing it. And that's where I got the idea. I'm like, oh, I can actually do this.
So did you run into Spike Lee at Martha's Vineyard? I see you're wearing a Martha's Vineyard.
Not this year.
Okay.
Not this year. I ran into Spike Lee in Brooklyn when I was putting myself through film school. I worked for FedEx, and I would do deliveries to 40 Acres and a Mule. And then I met all the people who worked at 40 Acres, and I befriended them. And one of my favorite moments doing a delivery, Denzel was in the office. Or I'm sorry, he just said Denzel is how you pronounce his name, Denzel. So he was in the office, and he was coming out, and I was coming in with a package. And I said, Mr. Washington, I'm a filmmaker. I would love to work with you. He said, all right, brother, come on, I'm waiting. And I was like, but you know, I met him before. I met him working on the first music video that he directed for BB Winans, I want to say.
Okay.
Ah.
Yeah. Which one is the man? Is it BB?
No.
Yes. CC is the woman.
Right.
Yes.
So yeah, BB Winans was it did a music video. Is one of his I think when he first did his own solo from his sister, and this was Denzel's first music video he directed, and it was in Harlem, and I met him, and I met his son John David, and I met Pauletta, and that was a whole interesting thing too.
So let me say this. I see your style. I hear your voice. I could see you being an actor.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But how do you really get into, because to be an actor, you go, you audition, you hear about it, you go, you try out, and you get a part or not. But to become a director, let's say the commercials you're doing, how do you get these jobs? How do you get the first job?
Oh my goodness. How do we get the first job? How did I get the first job, or how do people get the first? Well, you know what? I have a very interesting story and journey because I never saw myself doing any of this. I wasn't 8 years old saying I'm going to be a director. It just kind of met me. Like, I'm acting on stage, and the directors cast me in other things, and so and then my sort of love for TV, cinema, things like that. And then it's just sort of everything kind of worked out. Like I was, back then, I'm a kid from Indianapolis. I'd never been to New York. I know no one in New York. I have no friends in New York. My mentor just happened to be from New York. How do I get to New York? Back then, you got to have money, you got to have a job, all this other stuff. You just don't go to New York and, make it. So I was in class one day, and the guy sitting next to me worked at FedEx. And I started asking him, like, what's it like working there? He's like, oh man, it's cool. You could transfer anywhere in the world with this job. I'm like, what? You could transfer any? He said, yeah, man, you just put in a thing, anywhere you go. So now I know a way to get to New York with a job. I applied to FedEx, and as soon as I got in there, I told him I want to go to New York, and what do I need to do? And I had to build up enough time, and then it all worked out for when I got accepted to New York, to NYU. They only allowed 14 transfer students a year. They weren't big on allowing people to transfer during the middle of the semester. I was accepted, and then I couldn't afford it. And then I called them every day until they knew my voice. They would pick up the phone and like, hello, Mr. Polk. Like literally, I called them every day. Do you have money for me? Do you have? And when I showed up the first day on campus, the woman who had answered so many of those calls said, I had to see who you were because I know your voice. And when they got some money in, they called me up and said, hey, we have a scholarship for you. And I'm sure they were in the office like, oh, who do we give this to? And they're like, give it to the guy who's been calling here every day for the last 6-7 months.
But how did you get that first job?
The first job? Oh, Lord. Well, okay, see, again, I was at FedEx, and my favorite group was the Tribe Called Quest. All the guys were like, well, what's the new guy? Who is he? And then they hear my story. I'm there for film school. One of the guys knew the producer of a video that was the video for a Tribe Called Quest. He says, oh man, I'm gonna hook you up with my guy. He gave me that guy's info. I called the guy up. He was like, oh man, you're cool. You're film school, film students. Like, hey, come be my intern. So then that's how I worked on my first music video, was being an intern. And the first music video was for an artist who's no longer, performing, a young kid called Lil Vicious. It was he was a 9-year-old dance hall artist. And that was my first music video as an intern. And then one of the directors hired me as a sound guy. So, I started doing sound and doing sound on music videos and commercials. And then when I finished film school, I started working at NFL Films.
So at some point, as you're getting work, you're enjoying the work, you're developing your artist's vision. So tell us about your artist's vision what you're trying to create, the stories and forms of art you are trying to send out into the world?
I just want to put an addendum on this first job because I think you're talking about these bigger jobs that I did commercials and stuff like that. Again, a friend who I met modeling for Cross Colors when I flunked out for school. I modeled for Cross Colors when BET was touring, and I met this woman. We became friends, and years later, and I mean years later, we reconnected, and I was driving Uber and Lyft, and I get a phone call from her, and I said, "Hey, I met these guys. I think they need your level of talent and ability that they can afford, and you need work." And so I was literally driving Uber and Lyft to the production meetings for the first spot that I did, and that spot was for Home Depot. And that was so good that internally they were talking about making it a nationwide spot. It was for BET, um, Black Girls Rock, that, when they were doing that. And, but yeah, it was literally um, a friend called and said, "Hey, I know what you can do," and put me in the position. So the moral to the story is relationships. That's how everything has kind of happened for me. And I approach people in terms of relationships and not what they can do and who they are. And, if they're cool, they're cool. And if they're not, they're not. I don't care who you are. And, if you're not cool, then I'm not trying to cozy up to you. And so relationships are the reason I have gotten anywhere, done anything. So.
Okay, so I'd like to hear about your movie now. The why this is your first feature film.
Technically, yes.
It's a documentary, and it's about protecting Black land. So tell me, what brought you to this topic, and then quickly, what did you learn from it?
Again, relationships brought me to this topic. I knew about land issues, well, more specifically farmer issues from some of the hearings on C-SPAN that you hear about Black farmers. You hear that in the ether, and I didn't really pay attention to it, but I knew what was kind of going on with farmers not getting money, the USDA and the lawsuits of discrimination, and it was during the pandemic, and I was on a group chat with a group of men, and one of them had mentioned that they had farmland in their family for like over 100 years. And I was like, wait a minute. And I started doing the math. I was like, wait a minute, slavery was at this time. Like, how'd this happen? And it was like 400 acres. And then I was like, wow, like, oh, how did he have that much land at that time? And so I became really curious. I was working at the production company where I said my friend helped me to get started, and we were pitching a lot of ideas to to brands. I kept pitching the idea about Black farmers. People need to know that there are Black farmers out there, that they have land, and this is what they're doing, because I felt like there was one of those things, again, that we weren't really exposed to in current times. So people weren't even looking at farming as a way to have a living or be connected to the land. And I'm very much a land, in the woods, forest person. So, that was part of my impetus. And so one of my former colleagues at NFL Films was working with Al Roker. We reconnected, and she mentioned that this film was one of the things that they were doing. And they were looking for another director, and I kept saying, hey, I would love to do that. And I kept saying it every time we spoke. Again, back to NYU. Every time we spoke, I put it in there that I would love to direct it. And then January of 2022, I got a phone call. It's like, hey, how would you like to do it? I'm like, of course, you already know I want to do it. So that's how I kind of came to it.
Now you are the director of this film.
Mhm.
You're not the writer of the
I
film.
am.
You are the writer of the film.
Mhm.
You have collaborators on the film.
Mhm.
So, really, tell me a little bit about the collaboration process to turn out a product like this. I've seen your movie, it's stunning. So, tell us about the collaboration process to get to there.
A lot of this, to be honest, was my idea of what this story should be. What did I want to communicate with the audience? I made this film with Black people in mind, and not that anyone else couldn't see it and admire it and get the information, but anything outside of what are the facts of Ayers property and the people involved was a very like a communication between me and the audience. And so initially the collaboration was like me in a room by myself, kind of saying, okay, these are the people I want to talk to. And then I was introduced to one of the producers who would be, I was an executive producer with Al, and one of the producers who worked on the film with me was Shameen Williams, and she did a lot of research and like taking my ideas and saying, okay, this is who we can get to talk to you. And so we quickly became like the two that knew the most about everything and knew the people and knew the story, and we worked together from the moment I met her to the end of the film. Um, when we wrapped up production, and then it was me and the editor working together, and so the way I kind of collaborate with folks is I kind of like to let them do what they're good at. I spend a lot of time doing everything: writing, directing, producing, um, filming. I did everything on set. There's nothing I haven't done. But then that becomes overwhelming. Your product suffers. And so it's better to get people who are good at what they do, let them do it.
So, I want to ask the business question. Michelle knew I was going to ask the business question.
For sure.
Because our community is rich with creatives, and there are so many stories that need to be told. You've told a great one. There's a business aspect to being able to allow audiences all over to see and hear this great story and to do your next one. Tell us a little bit about that process of getting your work out and seen by the masses.
Oh, Lord. Well, when I started way back 2 years ago, when I started back way back, sometime it was very hard to get your work out if you weren't going to a festival and getting recognized by a studio, or if you weren't in the studio system yourself or TV system yourself. You almost had to go to film school and had to go through this sort of channel to get your projects out there. Now it's infinitely and exponentially easier to get your projects out there. Now, my film, Gaining Ground, is not out because I am not the owner of the film. I don't own the IP. It's owned by John Deere. They were the funders of the film. If I own the film, I know people right now, the thing will be out there. It would be out on any number of platforms. And that's the world we kind of live in. Even at the simplest, you can go on YouTube. And YouTube was the fastest growing platform out of the Netflix, the Apple TV, whatever, the past year or so. Between Tubi and YouTube and Roku and Apple TV and any number of streaming platforms, it's way easier to get a project out there. And right now, what's big in the industry is vertical stories, micro stories. So people are taking their cell phones and filming stories and cutting them up into 3-minute pieces or 1-minute pieces and putting them up on TikTok and people are making money like that and getting their films out. And I'm not talking about like film students. I'm talking about major motion picture studios and people who have been in the industry for years are going to that platform because a lot of this is just paying attention. And I pay attention. I have a 12-year-old. And what is she on? She's on her phone looking at YouTube shorts, vertical format, 30 seconds, okay, next. 30 seconds, okay, next. And TikTok, same thing. There are people who tell their whole stories in 50 parts on TikTok, and people watch all 50 of them.
Do any of them get picked up to become a full feature film?
Feature film is no longer the promised land that it once was. It's if you notice back in the day, people who were in movies were never on TV. You know, it was a guest appearance if they're on TV. Now you'll see a person in a feature film, you'll see them on TV, and you'll see them in a commercial. Because the industry is different and the money is different. And people are like, hey, I got to get the money where it's coming. And where can I build an audience? And people who are on TV tend to build bigger audiences now because they're in your living room multiple weeks. Well, my film is Gaining Ground, the Fight for Black Land. And look for it coming out soon. Hopefully, pray for me that it comes out because I think it's a beautiful film and a very informative one. And a lot of people are asking for it. And so it needs to be out there because it's going to share a lot of information for everyone. And pay attention to what I do next. I got some other things coming. And I'm working on. I think people will like it too.
It was very informative. I saw it. So do see it if and when it's out. Go ahead.
Our guest today has been Eternal Polk, master creative with a wonderful, wonderful film out, Gaining Ground, the Fight for Black Land. That's our show for today. And until next time,
Be empowered.